Hey guys, I hope you're having a nice week. I'm happy to see you back there. I'm Nabia, your confidence and relationship coach. And without further ado, let's start. So, friendship is something that is vital for human beings, and seeing how good we are in communication, it's not surprising that sometimes these relationships turn bad and become toxic. Friendship is often taken for granted. We bond with someone and then we kind of expect them to be always there for us, whatever the cost. But we are tricky beings, and our lack of communication makes things more complicated. Today, we are going to talk about these so-called toxic relationships. Not focusing on pointing the finger on anybody, asking the question, what if I am the toxic one in the relationship? Indeed, we often hear about people complaining or suffering from one of their friends' toxic behavior. We often get the victim's perception, but there are always two sides to take in account in a story. As every hero in a book, you will never see yourself as the villain, the bad guy of this story. Because in your mind, well, this is your story. Why would you be the bad guy? But if you take the time to put yourself in the other's shoes, you might be surprised. As I said in previous videos, we all share moments together, and yet there is not one that we will experience the same way. It is usually very difficult for us to admit our mistakes, which is why it is also very rare to hear people admit, yes, judging on my behavior, I have been toxic for my friends. How do we even accept the idea that we created a problematic, bringing us sometimes to harass a person or develop an extreme emotional dependency? Never forget that a relationship is always built between two people, so it is very rare for only one of the two people to be at fault. The great villains of a fairy tale don't exist anymore. Well, almost not anyway. Which is why I have never really felt comfortable with saying that such or such person is toxic. I see it more as people having weaknesses to work on. Unconsciously or sometimes unwillingly, we all carry our set of luggages. These big trunks of things that happen to us, and we don't really know how to get it away from our minds. Then we meet people and we forget that they also have their set of luggages. And sometimes the combo of the two people meeting leads to the creation of a toxic relationship. Yeah, let's talk more about toxic relationship, not toxic people. I'm sure that if we go back in time, we all have been more or less toxic to someone at some point. Whether we wanted it or not is another question. Note that there are people who suffer from neurosis, psychopath for example. As much as we'd like it to be, we are not in the rainbowy Care Bears country. Still, before judging someone, try to put aside your emotions and show empathy and try to understand them a bit, not too much, and see why they make the decision they make. In a previous video, we have talked about emotional dependency. Now, I would like to add that I am not entirely fond of that term either. But I guess you have to try to name things to try to understand them. I don't really like that term because deep down, we are all loving beings in constant search of this amazing, gooey, unconditional love feeling. Therefore, emotional dependency is, in itself, always present in our lives. Think, you love, then sometimes it goes a bit down, sometimes you break up, but then, after a certain recovery time, you want to love again. You can be emotionally closed, not having enough time to give to people, yet you still want love and hugs and connection. We can resist as much as we want. Making friendly and loving relationships is like inscribed in our DNA. Our job, though, is to accept it and take the chance to meet and get attached to people while also learning to detach yourself so as to not suffocate others or lose ourselves in love. But what is a toxic friendship? Everything starts with friendship. People enjoying seeing each other, listening to each other, sharing and making themselves available. It becomes toxic when this friendship loses its quality of exchange, availability, and listening. Something is polluting it. There is like a poison which comes and taints the relationship, often unconsciously. We are not going to talk about manipulation today. That's another thing. If we set aside people with bad intentions, keep in mind that in general, people who prove themselves to be toxic to their loved ones, they do not notice it. Remember the second level of consciousness we've been talking about in the previous video? They just live. They want, they get. They purely react to their feelings and the response the world gives them. They live in a norm that is not shared by the people in their social networks, and therefore they remain in this kind of desperate desire to be loved, this need to be supported. In exchange, their peeps feel guilty, not really knowing how to answer such a need of attention and not wanting to let them down. Okay, we are all born with irrevocable needs: eating, drinking, walking, but we also have a need of affection. A baby without attention, touch, hugs, talk, songs, this baby could die. If we grow up with the impression of a lack of affection from our family or friends, it will create deficiencies, disorders in our mind. For example, we might start thinking, if they don't love me or want me, it's because I'm not nice, I'm not lovable, I'm not worthy, maybe I have a problem. Everything is done unconsciously, but our heart is broken by confusion. We also sometimes don't have the information necessary to answer our inner questions, which will bring a lot of stress, contortions, our stomach tightening. Our body is going to start showing signs that we are not feeling well, at least mentally. And this instability will distort our view of relationships. We are tossed by a whole bunch of emotions, and we lose consciousness of our inner selves. We actually don't really know who we are anymore, and we don't even take the time to think about it, because we are lost in this need of attention, entirely focused on others and the outside, instead of trying to understand what and how we feel. We try to fit to this perfect image we have in our mind of the ultimate friendship, the type of friendship we think our friends are looking for, without really wondering if it actually suits us, or ask them if it is actually what they want, or not just an idea we have in our mind. Often, people just want to meet you and learn to know you better, so you don't have to conform to any standards. Friendship is actually about opening yourself and building the trust that the person you are is actually accepted and loved for who they are. It's not about doing your best to be loved, thus changing who you really are. All my friends smoke or drink, so I'm gonna smoke or drink to belong in the group and do like everybody else. No. They love you. They don't care about that. Don't copy what everybody is doing, because also the trick is, if you copy them, thus try to become them, they might stop loving you, because who are you? They are already themselves, so they don't need an exact copy. As selfish as it can sound, people want to meet someone that is bringing something in their lives, on top of the care and love they feel for you. Okay, tricky question that you might ask yourself now. What if I am the kind of person that attracts toxic relationships, or has a constant toxic behavior? Stop thinking about that. It's good that you are asking yourself the question, but don't overthink it. Don't forget that we attract the energies we send. So if you are at a time in your life where you feel, well, everything is perfect, well, you will probably attract radiant people and exciting conversations. But it works both ways. Sometimes, often, we meet someone when we are not so well. during a tricky situation at work, after a breakup, the person in front of us encounters the same type of situation and is therefore more able to understand how we are feeling than the rest of our friends. And that is how sometimes beautiful relationships, friendships are created. However, remember that it is a time when you are rather unstable, and this instability will echo the person in front of you. What's the problem then? Precisely the fact that you are connected by the fact that there is a problem in your life, which will not always encourage you to solve it. If you don't take the time to build a solid and stable ground for your friendship, then what happens when you or your friends start feeling better and the problem is gone? One of you, fearing that the relationship might end at that point, might try to reinforce this issue to be sure to keep the other in their lives. And we have toxic behavior. You ever got that friend that you meet after a breakup? They are in the same situation, so that's perfect. Your best friend ever. You go out together, it's fun, but every time you meet someone, another friend or another potential partner, they don't like them. They always find something to say, whether their looks, their behavior towards you or the other people, and they often say, you know, you are worth way more than that. We can and will also turn this around. You've ever been out with your friends and every time they meet someone, you don't want to react like that, but you feel that little sting, that bite, little thorn of jealousy or I don't know, you just don't like the people they meet. Or you feel a bit of fear, like they're leaving you alone sometimes. If you don't know what I'm talking about, have a look at Peach Salinger. In the first season of the TV show You, she gives nice examples of toxic friendship. I'd love to have a talk with her. In this situation, we are generally not ourselves, or at least not the person we would like to become. These are also supposed to be temporary situations. Don't misunderstand me. It can create amazing friendships, thanks to the support you can both provide to each other in these such complicated times. Just be sure to maintain healthy boundaries and keep a good balance with your other relationships. Emotional dependency is not only between loving couples, it actually also happens a lot between friends and family members. If the base of your friendship is not healthy, one of you will not be ready when the other starts feeling better, and it is rarely happening at the same time for both of you. And the other, you or your friend, might feel rejected and betrayed. They just won't understand why the situation is changing, and then comes drama. A lot of drama. You know those phrases when you are accused or accusing someone, like, they lied to me from the beginning and hid their personality from me, or they never really cared and made me feel like we were connected, but we were never connected in the end. Hurts, right? Because your friendship felt and was actually real. You just had big communication issues. Okay, even in cases where your friendship wasn't born from a certain instability. You meet someone, it clicks, you become friends. Well, we always lie a little when we meet someone. We are not going to unpack our entire bag at the beginning of a relationship for fear of appearing neurotic. But where is the limit of the lie? In addition, there is the lie you make to someone, but also the lie you make to yourself. You know, when you'd rather stay in denial and assume another identity rather than confront your problems? I know. You postpone dealing with these issues, and even if the decisions you and your friend make don't really make you feel comfortable, you just follow the flow because it makes you forget your problem. Yeah, this is future me's problem. Huh. No wonder they feel betrayed when you suddenly decide to wake up and show them an entirely different face, full of good principles. You have unconsciously set the ground for a toxic friendship to be born by hiding your true identity. It is not as bad as harassment, for example, but betrayal stings. In these cases, we sometimes realize that we were not actually looking for a friend, but simply for an ear to pour all our problems into and free our minds. We grew attached to that person, but we do not love them sincerely, or not for the good reason, at least. We do not love them for themselves. Because if we were honest, and it is an awful thing to say, but we might have never connected with them if we felt okay at that time instead of sad or a bit empty. We liked the fact that they filled this void that we felt within. But now the relationship is there. So it is up to you to decide if a real friendship can stick, or if, well, you might gonna have to have a nice and tricky conversation together. Good luck with that. Okay, now, what if you were friends before? Like for a long time ago. You are friends and you spend more and more time together, and one day, this best friend of you tells you, "Stop! I cannot bear your drama anymore." What? Where does that come from? Yes, you've been seeing each other a lot lately. Yes, they kind of feel like they are the only friends you can trust. Okay, you have been calling them 3 times a day these last weeks, and you also came at their place after work. But on this what friendship is supposed to be about? Yes, you've been complaining a lot, about your problems and might not have listened to theirs that much. But it's because yours take so much space in your mind, and theirs are not that bad in the end, and sometimes neither of you has been behaving as themselves in the end. One was locked up in suffering, while the other was unable to express sincerely their feelings about the situation. But they have their lives and own problems to deal with, and often they would love to tell you to shut the but for fear of worsening the situation, but also because sometimes they don't know how or want to be vulnerable with you, they just listened to you without complaining until they could not take it anymore. They accepted to take in the charge you poured in them and suffered for you silently, when these were not their problems at all actually. They tried their best to show empathy, but slowly it turned to simple sympathy, and then they burst out. You know what? The fault is still on both sides. Neither of you knows how to behave as a friend with the other. One is totally taking the other for granted, and the other should know how to tell their friends to stop before exploding. But at some point, at a moment in your history, you both decided to just let it go, assuming that the situation was normal after all. And we have toxic friendship. You didn't want to be toxic for each other. It is called Cartman's drama triangle. As in the movies, we have a victim, a persecutor, a person, society, the world, your life, and last but not least character, the savior. In this triangle, identities are constantly moving. One begins with being the victim, and then the savior, and then the persecutor, and vice versa. We assume several identities, and it's a cycle that seems infinite as long as the two people remain in relationship together. It works a bit like that. I'm sad, so you save me. I'm too sad. You're frustrated and angry at me. But then you're sad about something, so I'm gonna save you. And then you are too sad about it, so I get annoyed. But we're friends, and we love each other. How to get out of this dramatic triangle? dominant versus dominated. Realizing it, taking the time to study the situation, can help stop the cycle. But it is often unconscious, so it requires a lot of self-awareness. Unfortunately, we often let the intensity of the emotions felt, and sometimes it takes a lot of suffering and frustration before we come to that. But you are not just sad or angry or frustrated. You are deep down encouraging a negative situation. Stop only reacting and try to honestly understand why you are feeling these emotions. We need to realize that we are not behaving as ourselves, to put an end to this dramatic triangle, because if we allow it to continue, we will soon be facing 3 types of situations: flight, running away, disappearing, ghosting the friend; manipulation, inventing lies, making excuses, leading your friends to meet other people to try to make them bond with someone else; and the last one, aggression, physical or verbal. Please, before it comes to that, be assertive. Take ownership of your feelings and launch a discussion. And launch a discussion when the relationship is making you feel uncomfortable because your friend is too much there or not enough. Talk without trying to make them feel guilty. Like, don't point the finger at them. Just share as nicely as possible how you feel and see how they react to that. In conclusion, it can be hard sometimes to accept that we may be the one who needs to change, and that the expectations we enforce on our loved ones encourage this toxicity, when they are only the reflections of our internal conflicts, and we must accept to do the work necessary to face our problems, our fear of loneliness, for example. You can ask for help. Of course, please, do. Friends are here for that. But if you keep complaining without acting, taking decisions, trying to change things, your friends won't be able to help you, and will feel annoyed at some point if they see that you actually kind of enjoy sadistically this situation, because you are then wasting your time and theirs, instead of enjoying funny moments together. Deciding to do this work is a symbol of great inner strength. It is not easy at all, and it is very admirable. It is hard, but it brings a lot of rewards. We learn to realize that the security we previously sought from others, we can actually find it in ourselves. We need others to foster friendly relationships, but our survival is not at stake, and we must equally enjoy the time we spent on our own. Meditation helps a lot too. Sit in your room alone from time to time, just to feel. Meditation allows you to become more aware of your breathing, your emotions, your thoughts, but also the importance of letting your mind breathe. We are not just a body. Our body and mind are connected, and when one goes wrong, the other will soon start showing the signs. If you generally lack affection, or the perception of a lack of affection, then your body will certainly have some deficiencies in the long run, and try to inform you of the instability you are experiencing. Learn to leave yourself be, and you will also release your loved ones from the guilt and the stress of not loving you enough. Those people who sincerely care about your well-being will feel less burdened and enjoy your meetings more. And remember that the problems you experienced in your life will not stop you from being loved. Just take it one step at a time, and you will get rid of those fears. Okay, so I really hope that this video brought you another perspective on toxic relationships, because I think that sometimes we tend to quickly name people as being toxic without really trying to understand them, and it's a pity because sometimes it's just a misunderstanding. People don't always try to be voluntarily mean. They just sometimes don't know how to behave. They just sometimes need to be taught boundaries. I think we will do other videos on that kind of topics, because there is like so much things to say on that. But if you have to take one thing out of this video, it's that everything is about communication. Stop avoiding conversation. Discussing your issues and fears is the best habit you can get. If you have any comments, advices, or topics you'd like us to talk about? Leave it in the comment section below. If you want to book a session, you will find all the information you need on the description somewhere there. And in the meantime, don't forget to focus, breathe, rise. Love you all. See ya.